Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
How are you doing?
I am doing well, and I hope you are too.
Oh, by His grace, we are well.
Well, I am asking about this development that we have seen in Parliament, the passage of this new bills. In fact, the Secretary of the Food and Beverages Association is not happy with what has happened. He says it will drive up prices, and secondly, to threaten the businesses. But government says it needs it for the IMF deal. What do you think?
Thank you very much, Sana, and good morning to your cherished listeners, fellow comrades, Ghanaians. I think that on this occasion, I stand very much behind the Secretary to the Association of the Beverage Retailers. In fact, it wasn't just him alone, but the GUTA and the AGI also stood behind us. And the reason the position, the reason I support their position is born out of basic common economic sense, if I may put it as such. You know, if you take the case of the what do you call it, the Beverage Association's position, these bills are going to increase the prices of beverages because the bills are going straight on the prices of the commodities that they are retailing. Now, we all know we already have an inflation issue, over 50%. So if you have a bill that is seeking to, if you like, raise revenue by hiking up prices, you must realize that consumers are sensitive, price sensitive, especially in a time like this when the economy is in dire straits and people want to only be able to buy what? The very basics. And so if you have a tax that has the effect of increase the pricing of goods, demand will automatically what? Fall. People will cut back on how much they consume on that, which means that those companies will make less money, which means that even the current projections that the government is making in terms of how much it wants to get will be reduced. So you are going to end up in a situation where government won't get the revenue it wants. It will help to hike up inflation. And we all know that inflation going up has a terrible effect on the city, which is going to have a knock-on effect on the debt position we have, because our debt is largely what? Priced in dollars. So if your inflation is leading to a situation where it is impacting your exchange rate, and your exchange rate becomes adverse, and the cedi depreciates further, even though your dollar value may remain the same, if the cedi depreciates further, the cedi value of your overall debt will what? Will go up. So in attempting to get their sustainability, we may actually be getting
Okay.
this. Now, the total amount that all of these four bills is going to give government is projected at 4 billion, Senna. Just a miserable 4 billion. That's roughly what? About less than $500 million if you look at it from that angle. Now, that 4 billion is almost all of, if you like, you take the cost of governance at the Office of Government Machinery, Nanado's, the presidency, their budget alone will swallow up all of the revenue of these three bills. Is it worth visiting this much pain on Ghanaians just for the pleasure of having over 1,500 staff at the presidency? The answer is a clear, resounding no. You know, to make things even more clearer, the domestic debt exchange program has saved government about 40 billion. And then you have the suspension of external debt servicing has saved government about 21 billion, giving you a total of 61 billion that government has saved so far. So, Senator, the question is this: if 61 billion is not to help us get to the IMF, what difference with a miserable 4 billion, which is less than 10% of this 61 billion? In fact, roughly about 6% of this 61 billion. What difference will it make? Except for the fact that it will visit more untold hardship and pain on the ordinary Ghanaians, but it will make no difference whatsoever. We could have got this 4 billion by just cutting expenditure. You know, we have increased our budget by almost 100 billion compared to the budget of 2022. We could have simply slashed that 4 billion from expenditure side rather than trying to get it from revenue side, which I fear they may not get because people will react. They will cut back on spending on these goods where the prices are going up, and we'll be back to square one, Senna.
the government clearly says they need this in order to secure an IMF arrangement. And I don't think you disagree that we urgently need an IMF arrangement. So this is like a necessary evil. What do you say?
I don't think it's, first and foremost, this shouldn't even be one of the evils we should be counting at this stage. After domestic debt exchange has wiped up a lot of people's savings, most of the elderly people's savings, now is not the time to be increasing taxes on basic commodities, water, minerals, and all those kind of refreshments. Now is not the time, after domestic debt exchange program has shaved off the revenue of most banks and put them in a very difficult position, as the Bank of Ghana has admitted, after it has taken out the coupons of many companies, corporate bonds, for us to now start hitting them with a new version of the fiscal consolidation bill, after knocking them to their knees, is going to have a negative impact on businesses. And we must bear in mind that businesses pay the taxes. You know, if you tax your businesses to death, there will be no taxes to collect from them. If you tax, I mean, let's look at income tax. A large portion, about 1.2 billion of this 4 billion, is going to come from the already struggling, if you like, ordinary Ghanaians through their taxes. Already Ghanaians are not paid well enough. Cost of living has gone up. And so when you go and take another 1.2 billion from their pockets, after raiding their pockets through the domestic debt exchange program, after raiding their pockets through inflation of 54%, now taking an extra 1.2 billion from the pockets of Ghanaians, it's almost like adding more insult to injury. Now, Senator, nobody disputes the fact that we need the debt, the IMF package. But we can achieve that by cutting expenditure. The German ambassador made that clear to us. How do we justify a bloated government where you just passed 3 more or 5 more ministers recently at a high cost to the taxpayers, and then 3 days later, you increase the taxes on the people to basically pay for that? The cost of governance is too high, Senator. And this 4 billion, we can simply get it by cutting the number of presidential staffers. Why should the presidency have over 3 billion as a budget? And then we pass 3 new taxes to tax Ghanaians to the tune of 4 billion. So we all agree that we need the IMF package, but I don't think this is the way forward. Now, my simple question to government is this. You got 61 billion in savings from both the domestic debt exchange program and the suspension of external debt servicing. Now, if that 61 billion is not enough, what will an extra 4 billion do? What difference will the extra 4 billion do? And why can't we get those 4 billion of revenue, if you like, via savings in terms of cutting expenditure? If you cut the presidency alone by half, and by God, we know presidency is not in charge of delivering. Cut it by half, you save 1.5 billion, which means the increase in income tax thresholds to get 1.2 billion, you would have cleared that with an extra 300 million. Look at all the other government machineries. Reduce the size of government. We can easily get this 4 billion without these nuisance taxes.
So it is the difficult thing of reducing the size of government, cutting down government expenditure and consumption that government is avoiding, that is leading it to imposing further hardship. At the end of the day, what do you think will be the ripple effect of the decision they have made, with businesses suggesting that a lot of them might have to close down, there will be tax avoidance, it might not meet their target? So what will be the ripple effect of this move?
Well, it will be e-levy part 2. People will vote with their pockets. What you are suddenly going to do is that most employers who do want to avoid some of these taxes and take care of their employees well, especially those in the semi-official or semi-formal sectors of the economy, they are simply going to go underground. If they were going to give their employees any pay rises that will be affected by the tax cut, they will just give them on the table. So they will go behind these taxes. Companies will reduce the amount of reporting. Of course, they will shove in a lot of expenditure to make sure their profits are lower, and therefore the taxes will have next to zero impact. People will vote with their pockets. You know, if I was buying a bottle of Fanta every day and you increase the price now, I'll probably not buy that bottle of Fanta every day. I'll buy it every other day. So consumption will fall. And we're going to have the net effect on what happened with e-levy. It's going to affect jobs because companies will suffer. It's going to affect jobs because the demand from the consumers on these goods that are being hiked up price-wise will go down. And when demand goes down, it means the companies won't be able to sell as much, which means they will lay off workers. And so when Dr. Ali Nachia says that it will lead to unemployment, higher unemployment than we already have, record unemployment which we already have, that is going to be what will happen. And the net impact is that government won't get the revenue it wants. So these are going to end up being nuisance taxes, just like the e-levy, that they themselves now admit is a complete failure.